Hi everybody, my name is Kathleen Anderson. I am a sports performance intern coach here at Marquette University for the summer of 2016. I'm really excited to be here and take you through my programming for a mountain biker and how you can become king of the mountain. So here I'm going to talk about a couple mountain biking basics. First we'll go over some of the rules. There's not too many rules. Basically, if you pull somebody off their bike or intentionally ram into somebody, you're either disqualified or you get a big time deduction depending on the intensity of your move. Here we have a couple of pictures. As you can see, mountain bikers all need a bike which weighs 9 to 13 kilograms. They use helmets are required regardless of the race. They always have to have helmets on. Some people really prefer using gloves. They're not required. They have special clip-in shoes that clip into the pedals, and they also have special pants that they wear that are more comfortable to sit on their saddle or their seat. So we're going to start with this picture. This is what a typical course looks like. This is actually, all of these pictures are from the course that is in Rio, so the course that they're using for the Olympics. This is the highest peak of the course. As you can see, it kind of goes all over the place through different kinds of ups and downs. Right here, does anybody notice anything in this picture? Anything that looks familiar?
Looks like a golf course.
Okay.
Sandpit, maybe.
Yeah.
Are they in the air?
Yes, he's in the air. But, so Brazil wanted to add a bit of their flavor, and Brazil is very popular for a flip-flop brand, the Havaianas. So as you can see, this is in the shape of a flip-flop. So here he's jumping off of a big toe into another big toe across some rock barriers. And again, this is another way Brazil implemented their culture. So it gets pretty hot in Brazil. This is called the 40-degree descent. They used the name 40 degrees because of the temperatures, but also because it's a true 40-degree descent. And they're descending down a wooden staircase with some rocks in it. So we're going to talk about the needs analysis first. We'll start with injuries. As you can see, the most common injury is falling. From here you can get cuts, scrapes, bruises, but a lot of riders tend to go over the handlebars, like this guy here, and causing them to stretch out their arms to try to catch themselves. This can pose a lot of problems: dislocations in the shoulder, hyperextending elbows, breaking bones, wrists, fingers. There's also many cases of dislocated jawbones or fractures in the maxilla and dental issues. One other injury that isn't necessarily always talked about is when you go over the handlebars kind of hit your stomach, and that can cause internal damages or bruising to kidneys, spleen, liver. Now we'll move on to the movement analysis. Here we have two phases in mountain biking. First is the push phase, the second is the pull phase. So the push phase is the downward or the power phase, while the second is the upward or the recovery stroke. So if you think about a clock, you have your first phase, which is the push, is going to start at 12 o'clock and it's going to continue till 6 o'clock. The pulling phase is going to start at 6 and continue up to 12. So when you think, you have one foot starting on the push and the other starting at the pull. But it's not necessarily a true pull, because this foot that is starting at the 12 o'clock position is pushing, simultaneously causing that second foot to be pulled upwards. So here is a great illustration by Stephen Thordarson. He is an elite U.S. cycling coach. What he did, he conducted an EMG study on the muscles of the leg during a pedaling movement. So as you can see, there are many more muscles activated during that pushing phase, while not as many up for the pull. The biggest muscles that were activated were the bicep femoris. We have our glutes, our tibialis anterior is more seen right here by this orange in the pull or the recovery stroke. Now we'll move on to our physiological analysis. So mountain bike racing usually lasts for about an hour and a half to 2 hours long. It's a very long race, which is why we're using our aerobic pathway. There's a couple studies that have been done on the physiology of mountain biking, and two of them, I have the resources at the end of this presentation if you're interested in learning more. But one of them stated that they found that racers stay at or above 80% of their VO2 max the entire race, and their heart rates are above or at 90% of their heart rate max. So this is leading into our goals. Obviously, one of our goals is endurance. We want our athlete to be able to go for a long amount of time, seeing as mountain biking is a long race. We also want them to have explosive power and muscular strength. My athletic profile, we're going to have a 25-year-old male. He's an advanced mountain biker, an intermediate lifting experience, and he has no injuries. So this is just to start with the big picture, this is an example of my annual plan. So his season is going to start in December. He's going to have a 2-week transition season that's going to be part of his off season, which is 6 months long, continuing into the 5-month in season where he'll have 3 different competitions, followed by a postseason or active rest session of about 3 weeks. I'd like to start by talking about our off season, beginning with the general prep period. So this is where our focus is just solely on hypertrophy, basic strength and power, and developing that aerobic endurance. So we're going to stick with a pretty simple set and rep scheme. We're going to have about 3 sets, anywhere from 8 to 12 reps. And here's an example of what my first block of my general prep will look like, and then a comparison to my last block of what my general prep will look like, just so you can see the transitions. So I'm going to, as you can see, here we have the 3 sets of 8, and they're progressing with weights. Another way I progress my athlete is with the number of reps that they use or adding a different variation, so whether that's starting with a double leg or moving on to single leg activities. Right here, this is getting more closer to our specific prep period and leading into our in-season. So as you can see, the number of reps are going down just to kind of keep their player load where we want them to be so that they're not overtraining. So, like I said, specific prep, we have a bit more higher set load, and the reps are staying about a moderate amount. And we're going to be transitioning into more specific exercises. As you can see, like I said earlier, we have more single leg exercises. We're including isometrics, more explosive movements, and doing more dumbbell shoulder shrugs or forearm extension and flexion exercises to make sure that they are incorporating their upper body as well. Here we have our first day of cardio coming into the mix, and so we're going to start with our endurance runs, and we're going to have sprinting implemented in the program the first, I think it's 2 months, and we're going to have them doing it 2 times a week. Then we're going to transition to 3 times a week in the 3rd month of that general prep and continue that through their specific prep. Throughout all of this, we're assuming that they're riding 3 to 4 times a week. As we continue through our specific prep, we're going to become more specific and adding those resistance bikes, adding different kinds of power skips, jumping. We're going to add jump bands just to kind of keep the athlete on their toes and implementing different sorts of training. Once our in-season starts, they're going to be practicing a lot more and doing more riding, so there's not going to be much conditioning, and that will diminish a bit. Moving on to our in-season, our focus turns to strength, power, and more maintenance. So we have a lower volume and a higher bout of intensity for our athlete to be performing at. As you can see, we stick with basic exercises, similar number of sets and reps, and then we'll move into our loading phase, which is included right before the week of competition. As I said, there are 3 main competitions, so we'll have 3 different loading phases. We have a higher number of sets with a lower number of reps to hope that they're hitting their maximum strength and power at these times. So our postseason is just active rest, leisurely rides, aerobic endurance, and body weight work. I really want them to kind of take a break because they've been going through a very intensive training program. But also, we want them to be working on their mobility, range of motion, and injury prevention. So throughout the program, I have bunch of different band work, mobility exercises, foam rolling. All of that is incorporated throughout the season to ensure that they're taking care of their bodies and minimizing their injury risk. So I'd like to conclude and ask for any questions, but first I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to present to you and taking the time to be here. Really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you feel free to email me, and I'm also on Twitter, and you can find me by my handle.
Daniel K. Hall, Assistant Director of Sports Performance here at Marquette. So with courses, obviously you were talking about when Rio, Brazil put their little twist on. Does that mean there are no two courses are the same, or they're different training demands for it? Can you talk a little bit more about what can an average rider expect to see?
Sure. So an average rider, the courses they're all different. They're usually about the same length. So the goal is to complete a number of laps to be the fastest person to complete that number of laps. And throughout the courses, you could find anywhere from mud, there's big rocks, there's smaller gravel patches, there's logs. It really depends on what the course wants to implement. That's what the athletes will expect. Yes.
Hey Kathleen, Will Eggers, Sports Performance Intern here at Marquette University. So with mountain biking, you talk mainly about just the demand on the legs with pedaling the bike, but with going over certain obstacles, are there ever times when the rider needs to try to maneuver his bike by making any kind of pulling motions of the handlebars, or trying to jump the bike up in the air to get over obstacles? Is that
that's a great point. A lot of people ask, why would you train arms if mountain biking is primarily legs? But for those reasons exactly, they have to be prepared to control the bike, because if you hit an obstacle, your legs aren't going to be able to do much. You're going to want to control the bike with your arm, with your core. And so that's why I do, whether it's a superset of curls and rows, or a lot of push-ups, all of that is incorporated in my plans, and I'd be happy to show you those later.
Stu Rush, Assistant Director of Sports Performance at Marquette. You talked about injuries at the start, and mainly catastrophic injuries based on falling off the bike, which may not necessarily be in control of and ultimate control of the athlete. Are there any other actual soft tissue or repetitive use injuries that we can help as strength conditioning coaches to kind of mitigate the onset of that, or help them move away from that kind of pathway?
Sure. So with the falling, instead of those kind of dramatic, more intense injuries, come tears in muscles or tendons. All of those kinds of injuries can be accounted for as well. And so within my program, I do have them doing prehab and just making sure that I'm really looking out for those things using bands, or whether it's mobility or stretches that are also incorporated into the lifts.
And then I had a question about one of the exercises I saw. It looked interesting. Can you describe the newspaper plate hold?
Yes, so that was actually a exercise that I took from Coach Stuart Roche. And what it is, you're holding a plate, and it's great forearm work, which mountain bikers need, like Will said earlier. So you're going to be pinching the plate in one hand, crumpling a piece of newspaper in the other. Really works forearms.
Sounds amazing.
That's a
Yeah.
great exercise.
Sounds great.
Wow.
Yes.
Genius.
Any other questions?
Gotta end on that note.
All right, good job.